everyone ought to feel needed. I get frustrated, I get lost, I get real close to quitting and giving up more often than you'll ever know. I hope that you can see the pain that taking your own life can create for the people that care about you. It never goes away. It doesn't get better with time.
Help me. They make fun of my nose. They call me ugly. They say I have no friends.
What'd they do to you at lunch?
Poured milk on me and put hand up my clothes. Threw bread at me.
I remember I was shaking and I felt like I was gonna vomit. I was so scared. And I think that if you can be brave enough and be willing to be brave and vulnerable and raw and tell somebody, hey, I'm really not okay and I need your help, that changes everything.
These are babies, for God's sake. These are our kids.
If you are made fun of, just don't let it bother you. Just stay strong, I guess.
How are you, Thomas? Good morning, or good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm doing well, thank you.
Wonderful.
I see you have the Bullied poster in the background. That's cool.
I do, and I'm really excited about talking to you today because this is a subject that's near to me. And so I guess, why did you make this documentary? What drew you to this subject? Was it personal experience? Was it a story that you heard? Or it's got to be an interesting revelation.
Yeah, well, I mean, like really millions of people, I was bullied in school. And that, again, it's such a common story for so many people. But that wasn't really what brought me to this film. I was working on another film with a production crew. And just to cut to the chase, because it's kind of a circuitous story, we were looking at ways to bring out the consequences of people being marginalized in our country. And I said, well, we should talk to people who've been bullied and see, the kinds of things that have happened to them and what they went through. And eventually that led me to meeting Kirk Smalley. He's the very first individual in this film that audiences see. And he heads up a group called Stand for the Silent. Quick backstory, his son died by suicide when he was 12 years old. And that's what the group is. A group is a support network around the world for families that have experienced similar things. And so I sat down with Kirk in Oklahoma City and collected that interview, ostensibly for this other film that I'm talking about. And the interview just shook me completely to my core. And I came back to LA and told my production team, this is really powerful, this is important, but it needs to be a standalone film. I can't just interject a few minutes here in this film about this subject. We really need to focus. So I said, I'm going to continue with this film, of course, but I'm going to start making a film on bullying and the consequences of bullying. So it's sort of a long story. That got me into it. Kirk introduced me to other families. I'm a university professor, so I started contacting professors around the country who are experts on this field. So together, between the contacts with Kirk and all of the wonderful experts that appear, that's how this film came about.
Yeah, your film wastes no time tearing your heart out, I'll tell you that. And
Yeah.
I was bullied in grammar school. I'm Generation X, so we're talking the 70s, right? I was bullied in grammar school. I was bullied in junior high. I had two bullies in my life. I can see their faces and I remember their names.
Yeah.
And so talk about just dredging up memories I hadn't thought of in 30 years. I remember vividly different situations that I was faced with, and you felt hopeless even back then. Couldn't tell your parents. They go to the school, and you just had to live through it. Especially through junior high, I just had to live through daily harassment and threats.
Absolutely. I think so many people relate to that story. It peaks in middle school. What we know is that it can begin in elementary school, but it really peaks hard in middle school, levels off a little bit in high school. But, people should understand that adults are bullied too. This isn't a phenomenon that gets all ages. But kids carry these scars. I can remember the names of those bullies that bullied me too. So it's something we carry around probably for life.
I'm old school too. When back in those days, they took your lunch money. It was a simple
Right.
bullying, if that even makes sense. I
No.
cannot believe how it's high tech bullying has gone with
Yes.
social media. I don't know how kids can navigate today. And your movie really shines a spotlight on teen suicide and I mean, I knew it was a problem, but I can't imagine waking up every day, because when my bullying stopped when I got home, but now it's 24/7.
That's right. Cyberbullying means that it's sitting up there on social media or somewhere for all their friends and family to see 24 hours a day. They really can't escape it. And you said something earlier too that I think folks should know is that kids oftentimes won't speak to their parents. They won't tell adults what's going on. They'll keep this to themselves while all of this angst and all of this fear is sort of boiling up and adding pressure to them. So that's one of the things in this film is just imploring people who are suffering, to find that courage, to summon the courage to talk to people who can be of help.
Well, I think that kids don't do that. Not even my experience is it would make it worse. If your parents got involved, as you get older, of course, it's, we're not mature enough as kids to understand the consequences. And, parents have to do this. But, I remember just saying, I can't go to my parents because they'll go to the school, they'll call the parents and they would find me still. Back then you find you in your own neighborhood or, even today, but the consequences, I never heard of any kind of suicide rate with bullied kids back in my day, but today it is an epidemic.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you some statistics. First of all, 200,000 young people attempt suicide each year. That number staggered me when I first heard that. And they're collecting that number from emergency room visits. That's where they're getting that. Now, 5,000 actually complete suicide and end their own lives. I'm not saying that all of these are cases of bullying every single time, but for many of them, bullying is a trigger. They can have an underlying pre-existing condition. They could be suffering from depression. They could be suffering from bipolarism or any number of things. Bullying becomes that trigger that sends them right down to a path of helplessness where they don't know who and where to turn. And self-harm is how they begin to cope with that. Some kids start by cutting behaviors. Others will do things like abuse alcohol and drugs. But bullying for a lot of kids becomes a trigger for them to slide down a very dangerous path.
Yeah, I've met kids who have cutting, who do that on their arms or on their legs. And I mean, I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
And I guess that's just the stress and the angst that they have inside of them. And that's their release, is to do that. And also you touch on, to be responsible. It's like, you talk about triggers, that 13 Reasons Why, that series, people told me you should watch it. It's really good. I heard what it was about. I didn't watch it, but you touch on that in the documentary. How could that not be a trigger? I mean, isn't that irresponsible?
I think that all media producers, whether we are filmmakers, we produce TV series, what have you, have a responsibility. When you're dealing with sensitive issues that you're not stupid, that this is going to be something teens are going to binge watch. So you're touching upon issues like sexual assault, suicide, and self-harm. You have to be careful with those messages. Several young people around this country not only watched the 13 Reasons Why, they emulated it. They actually made the 13 tapes and then killed themselves. So, I think there's ways to navigate these issues in a responsible way. And the first way is make sure that you have experts consulting you on this data so you know when you're crossing a line. Don't make your ratings the one and most important thing to you. If you're saying, we need something that really pops here, so let's show this or let's show that.
Yeah, and also it reminds me also of that recent news story, that teenage girl who told her boyfriend who had mental problems, she knew it, you should just kill yourself.
Right.
And she went to prison.
Yeah.
As she should, maybe it wasn't the sole, reason why he did it, but
Right.
she knew his delicate balance.
Right.
And that was a trigger.
And that's the point I make to people who will say, well, come on, bullying is not a causal agent for suicide, or else we would see, millions of suicides. And I say, first of all, it's correlational, and my background's in the sciences, so correlational data is very good data. And it means that we know that it accompanies it in a frequency for those young people who have pre-existing conditions. How many of those? We're talking about hundreds of thousands, if not millions of young people have underlying conditions. So it's not a small number. And media producers just need to be mindful of that and make sure they have good advice coming to them from people who know what they're doing. That's what I've said to media people around the country. Enlist the people that I have in this film. They'd be happy to help you out and help you navigate this stuff.
Well, Thomas, what an eye-opening documentary. It should be required viewing for anyone, any kid in grammar school and middle school. And where can people see your documentary?
So I understand it's premiering on Amazon Prime February, like mid-February. I think it's the 12th, but I'm not positive. For educators, you can also go through Alexander Street, which is a distribution company. They are distributing it to schools, whereas Global Digital is going to be putting on Amazon Prime and then other digital platforms over the next few months. But that's the premiere, and we're going to start blasting that out over social media as much as we can.
Well, Thomas, thank you for bringing this incredible problem and your awareness and your dedication. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good talking with you.